Hey everybody, it's GauntletX, and welcome back to another traditional draft of Modern Horizons 3. This is yet another traditional draft being recorded as a practice draft for the Arena Open Day 2 drafts. So this is being recorded the day of the Arena Open Day 2, so that these traditional draft pods, we are drafting with players that are actually playing in the Arena Open, so as fierce competition as possible within the draft pod itself in terms of people taking the best of the best cards here and get some practice against the same competition we'll be drafting with when we play that Arena Open event. Anyways, with that whole spiel out of the way, let's just get into the pack one pick one here. We have multiple board wipe rares, and I think those are probably the best picks. Toxic Deluge is just the more flexible, easier to cast one, so we just take that here. There are other reasonable options, like a Johnny Fells the Godsire's like a big 2 or 3 for 1. Riddle Keeper's a pretty big finisher, but I think Deluge is a pretty absurd board wipe. It's a great way to start the draft off. For pick 2, what does this do? Search your library for a creature with toughness 2 or less, reveal it, put into your hand, then shuffle. That's not bad at all. 3 mana for a 1/1 draw a card. It's not a great deal, but 3 mana 1/1 draw whatever. 2 toughness or less card. A little better. I mean, it's not incredible, but really nothing in this pack is. I think the strongest card is likely the Wastscape Battle Mage, but it's kind of a 3-color card. It's colorless green and blue. Go with our Deluge here. We could just take the best mono-colored removal, which is Fanged Flames or Thraben Charm. Fanged Flames is more consistent in terms of being able to kill something when you cast it no matter what, but Thraben Charm is more flexible, being able to stop graveyard nonsense or destroy enchantments and stuff as well. I think I like Fanged Flames a little better here. I also like Black-Red a little better than Black-White, but might just be personal taste on that one. Pick 3, we now do see some very reasonable cards towards Black-Red. I think Refurbished Familiar is the best one. It's always a 2 for 1, and no matter what's going on your board, you're always going to be able to cast it and get a decent deal. As a 4 mana 2/1 flyer that makes your opponent discard a card, it's not great, but it's fine. And with just 1 or 2 artifacts on board, it becomes a great deal. The Pteramander, however, unless you have a bunch of artifacts on board, is actually just pretty bad, so I think I like to take that later when I'm much more committed to the artifact deck. The Familiar just a little flexible, a little more flexible, a little better. There are some pretty good off-color cards, but they're all right about the quality of like a pretty good common, like Malevolent Rumble or Demon Farrier. I think Skittering Precursor's decent in red, but again, it's about the same quality as these commons, so there's nothing strong enough to push us off our initial colors. While there are cards that are maybe a little better than Familiar, just not a lot better. Pick 4, this is an easy second Refurbished Familiar. No real competition out of this pack. Pick 5. See, this draft pod has so far looked considerably weaker than our first practice draft for the Arena Open, where we ended up Boros Energy. This is about what I expected to see in these really competitive Arena Open draft pods. So this is just like landscape. We take the on-color landscape over very little. There is a filler Eldrazi finisher with Drownyard Lurker for those kind of decks, and 1 blue removal spell. Those are about it when it comes to decent playables. Outside of that, there's like your 23rd filler card like Infernal Captor or Gargoyle. Pick 6, White of the Reliquary? It's got to be somewhat of a sign, and we are not committed to red yet. We can push green-black over black-red here. 2 mana 2/2 Vigilance. Sack an Eldrazi spawn, search your library for a land, put it on the battlefield tab. Just crazy ramp there, even without the buffs. Pick 6. I mean, I think we go for it. I mean, it's not like insane, but pick 6 is pretty late. Pick 7 doesn't really have anything. There's like Infernal Captor, I guess. Frogmere Enforcer's like okay. But Rakdos artifact decks in this format do not play like full-on affinity decks that actually get to cast this for super cheap. Like maybe in Magical Christmas Land you get a 1-mana 2/2 or like a 3-mana 4/4, and those just aren't that impressive in this format anyway. And that's like a best case scenario kind of thing. It's a green-red landscape if we want to try to go full Jund. This is a black-red dual land. Tusker's fine for green-black. It can also cycle to buff the white of the reliquary. How powerful is the green-blue rare? Oh, it doesn't even work. Because we're not playing Commander. Alright, well I'll just take the Warped Tusker. I like the idea of cycling things alongside white of the reliquary. Green-red landscape, green-black landscape, or evolution witness are all fine here. Actually, in green-black, this is the best color pair for evolution witness, because we could have the Wither and Bloom to put another counter on it later. I think I'd take that over the landscape for that synergy. All whatever, although Arena of Glory is pretty much going to be strictly better than a mountain. We did get the Terramander pick 11, so Rakdos Artifacts is certainly somewhere we could be. Glimpse, again, really only going to be good if we go specifically Gruul, and I have not seen a lot of good green Eldrazi stuff. We've seen some fine green, like, Golgari counter stuff. Guess we're never playing Vexing Bauble. We'll put a Foul Strike in the sideboard. If our opponent has a lot of flyers, we can run this and then see Golgari counter stuff. We can destroy their flyer with it or throw some counters on Evolution Witness, pick something else back up. So pack 2, pick 1. What do we see here? Eladamri or Cranial Ram. So kind of a pretty committal position at this point. Again, I don't think mono green cards were going particularly late. It's the Golgari counter-specific synergy cards like Witness, White, and Ooze that went late. Whereas Terramander went like pick 11 here. So should be a good draft pod for Cranial Ram pushing full Rakdos artifacts. Competing over the green feels like it's going to be more difficult with what we've seen so far, even if Eladamri is stronger than Cranial Ram. Although we almost definitely wield a Cranial Ram. Since we wield the Terramander, we just wield this Cranial Ram. It's the only card we want for Rakdos anyway. Pack 2, pick 2. Kozilek's only 9 mana? I mean, that's a lot, generally speaking, but it's not uncastable in this format if we get to be a green deck. This is a full on-color landscape as well. It is a Jund landscape. Kind of wish I took that Glimpse now that we have an incredible 9-drop bomb. Decent artifacts for the artifact deck. The Etchslith, the Gatekeeper, Dreadmobile. But I think Kozilek's just so wild. We take that. Now we have Spawn Gang Commander. Kind of pushes us to full Jund at this point. Nothing for Rakdos, so we're not even passing anything up to speculate towards our Kozilek Jund build. Yeah, there's nothing for Rakdos artifacts, so it's an easy Spawn Gang. Another Spawn Gang Commander? Alright. Well, I think we have to take that because it's so good at ramping into Kozilek, but Rallad the Implicit Maze is a very, very good value play, even if it only kills one of your opponent's creatures on the first part. Kill a creature, draw 2 cards, create a Spellgorger weird. Huge value play, but I think Spawn Gang for the synergy with Kozilek is huge. And there's the Glimpse in the Impossible, which is another way to ramp up into the Kozilek. Wombat is impressive for a +1/+1 counter-focused deck, but we currently only have one card that actually really pops off with it, which is Evolution Witness. The Ooze doesn't really care. It doesn't trigger when it gets the counters. It would just be a little bit bigger thanks to the Cursed Wombat. Actually, Solar Transformer could be a huge deal here. helping us play 3-color really well, giving us a colorless source so we don't have to sack spawn to throw spawn at things. Actually, Solar Transformer is a big one. 2-mana Mana Rock. Looking great. Here's a red-black landscape towards the full Jund. Although Eldrazi Repurposer is a big one. 2 Eldrazi spawn tokens towards a Kozilek. Yeah, and I mean the double spawn gang, we're moving to the point where we're trying to be Gruul splashing a board wipe off of Toxic Deluge. I think we take Repurposer here. Realistically speaking, it is the best card towards a spawn gang Commander Kozilek kind of deck. Is where we want to be with how strong those cards are. Now we can take a green-red landscape over basically nothing. Priest of Titania? Over Charge Bug? We don't need any extra energy to go with Solar Transformer. Getting a colored mana 3 times is more than enough for any game I've ever played that card so far. We did wheel the Cranial Ram, but we also got Malevolent Rumble, which is a way to dig for your best permanent in the top 4, so if you need lands, you pick up a land. If you don't need lands, you find a Spawn Gang or a Kozilek or something to ramp into. Rumble's great towards this Gruul Eldrazi deck we've ended up fighting over. And now Terramander looks unplayable, but the Familiars can still be a filler card off the splash. Green-red landscape probably over Ember Mage. We'll have plenty of big Eldrazi to play at the top end instead. Might be splashing in a white. Probably not. Pack 3, pick 1. Another on-color bomb, Springheart Nantuko. So you bestow this onto basically anything, and then anytime you play a land, you spend 2 mana to get a copy of whatever you put it onto. So it doesn't really matter what you put it on as long as it's a non-token creature. If you get a copy of an Eldrazi Repurposer every turn, just a 3/3, that's already a huge deal. You get a copy of something big like a Tusker or a Kozilek, that's insane. It's not going to synergize too well with Eldrazi cards like Repurposer and Spawn Gangs and stuff because they trigger and create all the spawn tokens when you cast them. But again, just creating a 3/3 every time you play a land is already huge, so you don't need insane combos for Nantuko to be a very good card. And it's always, at worst, going to give you a 1/1 every time you play a land. Even if you don't spend mana when you play those lands. We're not very high on removal right now. We have 1 Fanged Flames, 1 Deluge, and some Spawn Gangs to try it out. So I think I like the Stump Stomp. It's going to be fixing and removal for us. I do like Malevolent Rumble, but I think I can afford to take Stump Stomp over it to up the interaction count in this deck. Pick 3. There is another Priest of Titania, and that would actually technically be our 3rd elf, so we might be able to get 2 mana out of them at some point, which is very cute. We were supposed to be on Oozewag here, though, with our curve looking as low as it is right now. But speed ramp at the Kozilek does feel pretty powerful. So green-black landscape, Oozewag, and Priest are the cards really competing. I'm gonna go for another Priest. And we get a 3rd Spawn Gang commander. This is the kind of card where it's like the more the merrier. They all help each other become more powerful, and they all make it more consistent to cheat a Kozilek into play early, so we're absolutely taking that. Could have stuck pure Rakdos the whole time and had probably just as strong of a deck. We haven't seen any of the crazy uncommons or rares for that archetype, so I don't think it would have been way better than this green-red build, but it probably would have been pretty much just as strong if we just stuck to our guns and chilled on the artifact game plan. Seeing as no one else is trying to do that. Shifting Woodland can randomly give you another win condition if you're flooding out, so I like that a good bit here when there's no non-lands we're interested in. It's between that and a 2-color landscape, a green-black landscape. I'd probably take a green-red-black landscape over this, but not just a 2-color on-color landscape. Pick 6, now a Gatekeeper here. Works great with 3 copies of Spawn Gang Commander. That's going to be a lot of random extra damage. We take those. Oh my god. Alright, pick 7, 4th Spawn Gang Commander. We know what the box art of this deck is. Now we can get our first Oozewag, but we also get to take a 3rd Priest of Titania to have 4 elves in the deck, 3 priests and Eladamri. I enjoy that. Here's a Colossal Dreadmask to give us just a little bit more stuff to ramp into. Now that we have so much mana and nonsense. I guess I put the Solar Transformer with our non-creature spells. 4 Spawn Gang Commanders, Infernal Captor's probably a legitimate card here. Better than another sideboarded Foul Strike. And maybe the Captors we can also just pull in out of the sideboard too, depending on how things are going. Alright, we still wield the 2-color on-color landscape, so I'll take it. Still wield the Cranial Ram. At this point, I mean, it's pick 12, we're committed. I'm going to rare draft for the collection. Alright. I think the deck's done. It's right there. Yeah, we actually have to put something back in that we sideboarded. I guess we gotta try playing the White of the Reliquary. Like we have to splash in another card. Or main deck a Foul Strike. No way we can cast Mob consistently at all. I guess I could play like a Refurbished Familiar. That wouldn't be that hard to do. But it's just going to be a 4-mana 2/1 almost all the time. Yeah, I'm just going to put the white in here, and then we have options for how we sideboard the deck around, depending on the matchup. Like, the most obvious one is to just throw in a Foul Strike against Flyers. But if we want to go, like, full pure Jund here and run a lot more black sources, and be less of a splash to have a bit of a +1/+1 counter theme, we can move in that direction if the matchup warrants it. Probably our opponent has a lot of really efficient cheap removal that keeps killing all our mana dorks. We cut the ramp and become just like mid-range Jund with just beefy green-black creatures and stuff. Or like if the captors look really bad, there's like nothing good to steal. We can throw in familiars off the splash, try to get some good value plays or something. Like there's options here. Again, Foul Strike's really the only one that's going to be simple, but because our fixing's good enough to play around with all these colors and whatever level we want to, we can toy around with the deck a little more. So how does the mana look here? We have Stump Stomp being a green-red source, so that is really helpful when we're not using it as removal, although we'll probably use it as removal most of the time. 11 green cards, 9 red, and 2 black. We want green more than anything, so we can always play our Priest's turn 2, but red is a really close second. With 4 Spawn Gang Commanders, we need to consistently hit double red, so I mean, we're probably just on that 1 swamp life. 1 swamp and rely on the landscapes heavily. So 1 swamp and 2 landscapes that can find it, and that would be 3 black sources, 4 with the Solar Transformer. We may actually have to do the double swamp. I mean, the swamp's really only here for Toxic Deluge, which we can use much later. Because we did have to put another card in, there is the White of the Reliquary. So I guess there is 2 black cards, which is awkward. Yeah, this white is going to be rough. Is there any, like, really expensive black card we could splash in instead? Nope. It's straight up like I'm splashing in this white or I'm main decking a Foul Strike. I suppose we're so low on interaction, main decking a Foul Strike might not be the absolute end of the universe instead of main decking a really hard to cast white. I really don't love it, but I think I'm gonna do it here. So 1 black source and 2 landscapes means 3 black lands. We've got a solar transformer as well. And then green and red, we want to be pretty much even, maybe a tiny bit more green because green has all of our early cards. But again, we have 4 double red 5-drops that are all incredibly important. So we want a lot of red sources too. We right now have 5, 6, 7, 8 ways to get red mana and 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 ways to get green. And throw in another mountain. That's 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 to 10. Feels like pretty much exactly where we want it to be. We've also got the Stump Stomp for either if we really need to do that, and the Solar Transformer for anything. Looks like where we want the mana base to be. I think I am going to call it a deck there. And that is where Past Tense Gauntlet is going to sign off for the day. It's time for me to go actually draft in the Arena Open Day 2. Now, you all will have seen the outcome of that by now. But this is Past Gauntlet. This video is probably going live several days after the Arena Open, maybe even a week or 2 after. I don't actually know what the recording schedule is going to be. But yeah, Past Gauntlet signing off. Fingers crossed. Hopefully we do decently in the Arena Open draft. But Present Tense Gauntlet coming in hot to bring you all the gameplay with this deck. Alright, here we are for round 1. We're a mono green elf deck with this hand. Sure. Double Priest of Titania with 3 elves in the hand towards a cheap Kozilek could be absolutely absurd. We gotta hope our opponent doesn't have cheap removal. Oh my god. We're literally just playing like a historic deck in draft here. This is hilarious. I mean, now they can kill like 1 priest and we're still in a pretty good spot. If they have multiple removal spells, it's still gonna take a while for sure. They are on the play with a mana dork, so they have access to 4 mana already. So, could be a little scary. Oh my god! What is this? Is this like every elf in the deck now? Okay, what sequence do we do to get the most mana here? We play 1 elf before we tap this priest. That's all we can do. We can't play 2 elves before we tap this priest. Alright. So we get to have enough mana to play Eladamri over another Priest of Titania here. I kind of want to just play another Priest of Titania. But, I don't know, being able to cast creatures off the top is also pretty cool. I'm gonna go for Eladamri, it's also mana efficient there. And hopefully Eladamri actually draws removal from our opponent, instead of them shooting one of the priests, because that would actually be worse for us if they kill a priest because of the Kozilek in hand. Although if they kill nothing, we just play a Kozilek and just RIP. They've got 1 and a blue up here, but they're a deck running Fnatic and Eldrazi and stuff. What are the odds a 3-color deck that's probably deeper on green than any other color is running Aether Spike? Can't be particularly high, can it? I guess if I play Priest first, then both of the other ones tap for 4 if this resolves. Then I can still play Kozilek post-Priest? Yeah, sure. Alright. Here's Kozilek. Oh, up to 2 players manifest 2 cards from their hand. you don't even have to let your opponent manifest. I didn't even realize that. I thought it was... That's so insane. I mean, I knew Kozilek was good, but I thought the whole point was that each player manifests too. But yours, because you have a Kozilek on board, get +3/+2, and when your opponent manifests those cards, you're also drawing cards. But no, it's up to 2 players. You don't have to let your opponent manifest anything. Well, obviously, this is my first time ever casting the card. The only thing I play is draft, and it's the first time I've ever gotten a copy. Never ran up against it, I think, either. That is so much better than I even thought. That's ridiculous. So even if it does immediately get countered, you get to shove 2 of your cards in hand down as 2/2s, which usually doesn't matter, because usually you can't play Kozilek with more cards in your hand still, because by the time you have 9 mana, you've dumped all of your lands on board, and you're just out of cards. But when you have triple Priest of Titania, every single copy that you manage to draft, out on the board, then yeah, you've got the extra stuff to manifest for the Kozilek. Well, that was ridiculous. We're against a green-blue-red Eldrazi deck. They've got Fanatic to ramp up. They've got that, the card it won't let me look at because the stupid top bar. It's the Eldrazi Ravager 6/6 Annihilator thing. So we only saw 2 cards, but we know they're on Eldrazi. Our sideboard's kind of rough here. Again, because this is one of the Arena Open drafts. So super competitive draft pod didn't get much to toy around with. Yeah, we just run it back. Even if we had a good sideboard, like, we don't have a ton of information on the exact cards in their deck, just that it's Eldrazi ramp stuff. Hey there, Kozilek. We actually generally don't want you in the opening hand. Kozilek was really solid in our first opening hand just because of the ridiculous amount of ramp, but in this one, it is actually kind of a downside. I mean, we can Spawn Gang into it. Part of the upside of having a deck with 4 copies of Spawn Gang Commander. It's going to make that Kozilek much easier to cast. Well, this is a little weird. Deja vu. We've got a Kozilek and they've got their 1/4 ramp card, the Fanatic of Ronus. We don't have like 5 elves this time though. I'm pretty sure we literally drew every elf in the deck last game. That was like the greatest possible way to start to start the gameplay off with this deck. That was like a once ever kind of thing. 1, 2, 3, 4. We do need to hit a 5th land, and I already have Kozilek to ramp into, so I don't need the Dread Mask. If Kozilek resolves, that's a win right there. Guess we get the tap land out of the way. Although we have double Spawn Gang here, maybe we actually just keep this landscape rather than cracking it, come to think of it. So that we can use that colorless mana without having to sacrifice Eldrazi spawns to get colorless mana. Well, triple Spawn Gang Commander in the hand here, so I am very okay with sacking 1 spawn to get 3 more. And next turn we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Not quite Kozilek mana, but after our next Spawn Gang Commander, we have way more than enough. And then if Kozilek resolves, we'll have a couple Eldrazi spawn left around, and those are all going to get +3/+2. Man, I wish this practice draft was the deck we got to play in the Arena Open. At least day 2 draft number 2. Our day 1 draft 1 deck was good enough. Broke us into draft 2, that's good enough for me. Okay, here is another Spawn Gang Commander. I could Priest and Spawn Gang, but I lose out on some spawn that way, and with Kozilek buffing all the spawn, I don't really want to do that. And I can just manifest the Priest and the Evolution Witness next turn, draw 2 cards when I do so. Does Kozilek draw the cards even if he's countered? Yes, he does. So it's the cast trigger that allows you to manifest and draw the cards. You don't have to have Kozilek on board to draw the cards or anything. The only thing Kozilek on board does is buff all the spawns and all the other Eldrazi's and everything. And they don't have a blue mana up anyway. Alright, you got it. I'm not going to sack Commander here because that requires sacking some spawn, and I want all of them around. Ripperoni opponent. Whee! Target me, submit. Boop, boop, submit. Draw, draw. Oh, we could Spring Heart and hand Tuco a Kozilek? Can't actually copy Legends. Oop, that's not the button I want to do. I want to attack. With the Spawn Gang. Yeah, that's fair. So we just brought a constructed deck to this draft event against this opponent. I highly doubt we are going to do things that explosive in our future games, but we got to Kozilek in both games this round, and in the first game, we got to be just mono-green elves ramp into Kozilek, cast that thing off of just like 3 lands and some priests. Ridiculous round there. Our opponent really had like no shot. That was Magical Christmas Land for our deck, and not particularly fair and balanced. Alright, here we are for round number 2. Game 1 here, this is 5 lands, only 2 spells, neither of which really do anything by themselves. This ramps into a 3/3 that doesn't really have an ability. I think I actually have to take the mulligan here. There's like no game plan in that one. This is an absurdly risky keep. A 1-lander that's trying to get to 9 mana. But if we hit a single land, we get to play Priest of Titania. This hand does crumble to a single removal spell, though. They kill the Priest, and then we would have to go runner, draw land every turn for the rest of history. I think we are stuck on the Mold-A-5 here. This is the best hand we've had so far. And, you know, it is actually considerably better than both of our first 2 hands. I'm not going to complain too much about this one. It's definitely really rough to be on a Mold-A-5, but this hand is far better than the first 2. Alright, pretty aggressive start from our opponent. The Spawn Gangs should be decent against this deck if we can get them out quick enough to not die. But being able to trade Eldrazi spawn tokens into these germs is nice. Okay. If they have good sacrifice effects, this muster's going to start going crazy. Give them some flyers each turn. I'm worried about the mustard. Oh boy. Curved out using every single mana from turn 1 to turn 4. 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop, 4-drop on the play against the Mold-A-5. This is looking very deadly. We could have blocked this 1 damage from the Drossclaw here, but that gives them another flyer. Maybe still worth it. But, I don't know. I mean, we look just kind of dead no matter what here. The Dream opener versus the Mold-A-5. Kind of the 2 different ends of the spectrum. Yeah. Alright. We're moving on to game number 2. That is an incredible Orzhov aggro deck from our opponent, but also just a really absurd draw from them. They got to curve out. They used every single mana, every single turn from the game with double auxiliary to top it off to hit for 1 million there. Yeah. Again, we don't have much of a sideboard. If we did, we would throw in all of our cheap removal, but there is no cheap removal. Outside of stuff we're already playing, this is a matchup we hope to draw into Deluge. That's kind of an auto-win card in this matchup. They just dump our hand, curve out on us like that, and then we 4-for-1 them. It's a very quick way to recover, then a single Spawn Gang controls the board from there. So we have outs in this matchup just by having the Toxic Deluge, but we're going to need to draw quite well. We need to like hit exactly the Deluge or some cheap removal. The main deck Foul Strike actually coming in a little hot against the 3/3 flyers, although they have good cast abilities or good enter the battlefield abilities. All right, let's see what we can do. Hopefully draw quite a bit better, or have our opponent hit the other end of the spectrum here, have them on the multi-5 on this one. We'll see. Play first for sure. This is an instant keep. It doesn't have anything to ramp into yet, but it has cheap interaction against their deck and a 2/3 blocker to hold off the like 1/1 germ kind of stuff on the ground. So it is much better defensively than our last hand. And I think we keep the landscape for colorless mana later, because as we said before, as we realized before, we have 4 copies of the Spawn Gang Commander. So being able to, again, throw Eldrazi Spawn for damage without having to sacrifice additional Eldrazi Spawn is just really nice. Cursed Marauder? Sure, you can trade into my Priest because I have nothing to ramp into. That's actually a pretty good trade for me. Just have them play a 2-drop that doesn't hit me at all. Trade into the Priest. Alright, Flamesing a Germ token's pretty bad here. Eladamri, good draw. Gives me something to do instead of throwing removal at just a Germ. We didn't see any energy cards from our opponent in game 1, so this Static Prison might not last forever. And that would obviously be very advantageous if it doesn't. Gross, Gravedig the Marauder, kill Eladamri. Still doing fine here. All they have is the Germ, and this Rumble could find like anything good. A lot of solid stuff. I think Evolution Witness is the kind of card we want in this position, because I can witness back the Dread Mask and have both of those cards available. We're not under enough pressure to need to just slam down a 6/6 next turn. We can just play 4/3 and still be happy. Yeah, it's Evolution Witness, pick up the Dread Mask so we can get 2 cards off of this. I technically could cast Witness right now, but then it's dead to sorcery speed removal, and I don't want to do that. All right, they're over it. Fair enough. They don't have interaction for the Witness. And that was a little premature, but maybe they're just trying to get real quick games done with their super aggressive build, so let's not waste any more of their time. Let's head right into game 3 here. Well, we know what we're trying to ramp into, but the Stump Stomp doesn't work as removal. So we're not actually doing anything till turn 6 and then turn 9, which is a death sentence in this matchup. They are pure aggro. That's all they have going for them, as we saw last game. If they can't get that pure aggro, if we slow them down, then that can get them killed. So we want a hand that has some stuff to slow them down, some earlier plays. This is not the greatest hand, honestly, but I think it's better than an average mulligan to 5. Okay. Could have landscaped for a green source here, but I didn't have a green 2-drop in hand, so I figured I'd just Solar Transformer into my green spells for now. But then I top decked the green 2-drop, which makes it look real awkward. Alright, Inspired Inventor curve out here. Top deck another green card. That is very awkward. So now I think I definitely need to crack the landscape. Actually, might have just been a big mistake we didn't. On gang here. Deluge is gone, which is a huge bummer. I have the mana to cast Spawn Gang next turn if I play Stump Stomp tapped and then untapped Mountain. So I think I try to do that to ramp into Kozilek to stabilize here. Our opponent is really just on be on the play, curve out, gamble deck. And they're on the play curving out, so we might just be dead here. In fact, I think we just are. Just needed to win the coin flip in this match, I guess. Because if we were on the play for 2 of these games instead of them on the play for 2 of these games, it's probably enough to win. As we see, I mean, they just got crushed game 2. They conceded real preemptively just because we stopped the early aggro, and that's all we needed to do there. And I think just being 1 turn ahead of them by being on the play instead of on the draw gives us just enough time to drop the Kozilek and stabilize. Bummer. Yeah, we're just dead here, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I can only chump with 1 Eldrazi spawn, which puts me to 2 life, which puts me dead to Auxiliary in the sky, which means that casting Kozilek does not stop Auxiliary, because we don't have any reach there. We also milled our Foul Strike, which would have been massive here against the Flyer. Yeah, casting Kozilek doesn't do anything, so we have to just go chump chump. Oh my god. We have to just go chump chump, draw into something. That doesn't stop the Flyer, so we're dead. It's 5 damage, Dross Claw plus Auxiliary. Witness doesn't do anything. Alright. Should have been on the play 2 games. Here we are for the final round. Just hoping our opponent doesn't Magical Christmas Land curve us out and use every single mana every single turn aggressively. As long as they don't do that. As long as they don't do that, our deck, I think, is quite strong. But we'll see. Alright, so far so good. And we can actually Deluge here. That would have been our other way. If we just had drawn Deluge instead of milled it last round, we would have won the round as well. It's a bummer. Just did not line up for us. So green-white aggro here, there's the Mandibular Kites, there's the Horrific Assault on the Priest. Not much to ramp into here, so I really don't mind that. With the Deluge in hand, kind of like just holding off for that, cracking Landscape on black here. And trying to get a big board wipe coming. I actually should have cracked this. I totally forgot I could just sack the spawn for mana and immediately play that thing. That's on me. That was a bad play. I was so hell-bent on cracking Landscape for black mana immediately, when I could have just played Solar Transform and that would have been the black mana regardless. Yeah, that was super bad. But I guess this gives us a pretty good excuse to just sit here another turn and see if they commit any more creatures to the board here. That's fine. I take like 3 damage by waiting another turn. I go to 16. Still more than enough life to pay for Deluge. Sure, let's go to 16 here. Or 17. Alright, they're just going to pass turn. So they're probably on 2 removal spells here. I don't think you play around a board wipe in this position. So they're probably on 2 removal spells. Which means best play is to just wipe the board here. Follow up with 3 mana worth of stuff. We can play Evolution Witness afterward, but we want to play around the... we want to play around the removal spells that are potentially in their hand here. Alright, yeah, it's gotta be just removal in hand, because they would have just played another creature instead of poking for 1 damage this turn. Beautiful. We can Siege Gang and immediately kill the spawn while they're mostly tapped out. Good stuff. Pass from there. Is it not even removal? I feel like they'd probably kill Spawn Gang Commander while we were mostly tapped out there, if they had removal. It's not even removal. I'm actually really not sure what it is then. Well, here's Evo Witness. Start getting some value off that. We can even reinforce it with Foul Strike to pick up another permanent if we need to. It's just Flood, I guess? Excuse me. It's just Flood here. What it looks like. Guess I'm picking up Infernal Captor. Kind of a boring pickup, but because I have the backup Foul Strike to pick up another card later anyway, I'll make sure to get mana efficient on that and start beating down with those +1/+1 counters. Can do this, and I still have Foul Strike up off of the Eldrazi spawn tokens, and I can also sack a spawn off of the Eldrazi spawn tokens. And there we go. We are 1-0 to start off the final battle. Feels good. And we're just going to head right into game 2. All right. A little slow, but we got 1 piece of cheap interaction. I'm going to keep it here. Need another red source, actually, which is a little awkward. Oh, we do. We drew it immediately, so we're fine. I'm going to keep this landscape for now, then, with double Spawn Gang to want that colorless mana. Well... okay, I don't want it that badly. Not play Eladamri turn 3 here. Nightshade Dryad. I would like to Fanged Flames that. I can do that next turn alongside a Priest for mana efficiency, and that feels great. And there's third Spawn Gang. The more the merrier. Join the party, my friends. Ooh, they're on a 2-lander, so killing the Mana Dork's going to play really well here. Ooh, snap. Whenever land enters the battlefield under control, you can pay 1 and a green to get a copy of the bestowed creature, otherwise you just get a 1/1. If I want to play this for value here, all I get is a 1/1 off this land anyway. I think I'd rather play Priest. Towards having a ridiculous amount of mana for now. We've got 3 elves in this hand. Oh, what if I Springheart Nantuko, the Priest of Titania? Oh, please, Magical Christmas Land. Can we go back for round 3? Are we going to have just like 0 particularly fair games of Magic today? Someone lives in Magical Christmas Land each time? Okay, not yet. We don't have a land to go with this Nantuko here. So... oh, no, I can pick up Landscape with Evolution Witness to play as land for turn here, and then I can crack it next turn for landfall. Wait, well, this is another elf as well, so this is 4 mana, but it's 2 to adapt, 2 to bestow. I could bestow here, but not get a copy of Priest of Titania, because I won't have an extra 2 after the bestow. So I think I'll still do that. Let's at least get the 1/1. And then if they don't have removal, we can live in Magical Christmas Land from then on. Get in there, Eladamri. You can attack past a germ. You might not be the biggest elf ever, but you're bigger than a germ. And that's something. Please don't concede. Are they still stuck on 2, though? Oh, they might still be stuck on 2 mana, which just feels bad. Well, actually, come to think of it, with them being stuck on 2, I don't want to give them another spawn token. We'll just chump. Signature Slam Eladamri. Ooh, they're not killing the priest. Sure. You got it. You got it. Okay. Here we go, everybody. So, landscape. Green, green for a priest. I want to hold up double red here to play one of these spawn gangs. I guess I can't do that and make as many priests as possible. I just make one more priest. Oh, I should have gotten the black source. That was dumb. If I top deck Toxic Deluge, it doesn't work now. I can get another priest, but I guess I can't spawn gang here anyway. I don't have enough because these are all summoning sick. Yeah, I should have gotten black mana off that first landscape, but outside of that, our mana's looking pretty crazy now. We do need another red source too, but our first landscape couldn't have hit red. Solstice Zealot, sure. Stump Stomp. Lets me cast 2 spawn gangs next turn, or kill one of their creatures right now. I could also make another Priest of Titania, but that feels unnecessary at this point. I actually think we tap this one, because that's the one we want to die the least. I think we do play the Stump Stomp tapped here. Double spawn gang next turn. And because I know I have 2 more spawn gang, I can definitely throw these Eldrazi spawn around willy-nilly. Yeah, their ground attacks just don't even work anymore, because I just go chump chump, because I'm going to sack them to throw them anyway. Yeah, so they just send in for 1 in the sky. That's fine. I can take 1. Rather than sacking a spawn there, or sacking 2 spawn there. Alright, there's ramp for our opponent. Help them get out of this situation. Mana-wise. They're at 9 life. I can shoot them for 4 right now. Each spawn gang can shoot for 4, right? I sack these for colorless and then these for damage. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We actually kill them, right? Because of all the priests. Did we just elf ball them? Where I can go colorless, colorless, non-colorless, non-colorless. Shoot for 2. Pay with the green. Hello? Okay, there we go. Wouldn't let me choose what I wanted to pay with. Okay, and then we sack this to itself. And because I have like infinite non-colorless mana, I just do both of these. Top deck the swamp anyway if it matters. Might as well. Oh my god. This is egregious. This is actually evil. Just elf ball them with all this mana. We need to sack 3 spawns, so we need 3 colorless. There's 3 colorless. Shoot for 1/2. Shoot for 3/4. Shoot for 5/6. Well, in hindsight, I guess we could treat round 2 as just divine justice for running this nonsense. Because rarely were there any fair games of Magic played today. Somebody lived in magical Christmas land in almost all these games, and in most of them it was us, and it was as magical as Christmas land gets. How often do you get to triple Priest of Titania ramp into Kozilek in draft? How often do you get to have, like, I don't even know how much green mana we have access to next turn, potentially? 7 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? We have like 42 green mana available? Oh my god. Yeah, I mean, that's not even counting the lands. Technically, we have like, what, 48 green mana, but still. That was insane. Not much else to say about it. This deck was super fun and super sweet. It did get steamrolled by the round 2 aggro deck, but that was an incredible aggro deck from our opponent. A very well drafted deck for sure. It had a great aggressive curve, and they were on the play in 2 of those games, curving out perfectly every single turn. Not a single point of mana wasted in our first loss, and then the only thing they didn't do in our second loss was play a 1-drop from then on. They still went 2-drop, 3-drop, 4-drop, 4-drop, all committing to the board the whole time, so pretty unstoppable curve outs there in round 2 against us, sadly, but we got to spread the love, let somebody else live in Magical Christmas Land. Even if their deck's Magical Christmas Land is a lot less explosive and insane as our deck's Magical Christmas Land, it is still pretty much just as unbeatable. So we got to do some real fun things today. It was a absolutely wild draft, and I'll certainly take that. God, what I would give to live in the universe where this was the deck that we got to play in the Arena Open Day 2, draft number 2 at least, because that draft I could take it or leave it because it did not go the best. Draft 1, because we made it into Day 2, I don't think I would do it any differently. I mean, you can't argue with those results, but if we could replace draft 2 with this deck, even if I lost in the first round, if I at least got to do the Kozilek thing like one time, that would have been super sweet, because this was a fun one. This was a wild one. And even drafting this deck during the Arena Open day of drafting against probably plenty of drafters that were drafting in the Arena Open, we ended up with a really spicy, really sweet pile, and there's just a little bit of mediocre filler you really wouldn't want to run. The Foul Strike, I think, is the only thing we really got punished with having to main deck here. I guess Gatekeeper's not the greatest, but with 4 spawn gangs, it's pretty good. Captures actually are pretty awkward here. The idea is that with Eldrazi spawn, you have plenty of stuff to exploit for them, but this deck doesn't really win that way of like stealing 1 creature for extra damage at some point. So yeah, like the Foul Strike, Double Capture are probably the weakest pieces of filler in the deck, but everything else, like, we saw it there. It can really function together and do some crazy stuff, so really happy with this draft. That was a really fun, really explosive time, but we'll grab our 1,000 gems and 3 packs, and that is going to end today's video. As always, I'd like to thank my patrons and YouTube members for their support, as well as you for watching the video. If you enjoyed this video and are interested in seeing some more, you can always like, comment, and subscribe to tell the YouTube algorithm to send you some more in your recommended feed. If you'd like to catch me live, you can check out the Twitch channel in the link in the description below. And if you'd like to support the channel directly, you can check out the Patreon link in the description below. But other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.